about the big party election night festivities, which is Delaware Democrats at the DoubleTree by Hilton. So things will kick off, I guess,
After polls close,
after
8:30.
8:30. And contact the right person and you can spend the night if you pay. So I'm looking forward to that. We're here this evening we had a big party in the summer and we have a lot of the WEAC members come and celebrate with us, but this is to give the official award. It's the Bob Stacknick Progressive Courage Award, and it comes to WEAC via their extreme courage in the face of trying to pass this immensely important legislation through, pieces of legislation, and remedy the inequities that's happening with the kids in Wilmington. And we can fairly say across the state, because without reassessment of properties, with the uneven funding within districts, even within districts, it's time to make a change. So Tony, could you come up and I'll give you Tony is a co-chair of the Wilmington Education Improvement Commission. And thank you so much for your wonderful
Smile for the camera.
Kevin's will have it up on his blog tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, he's
Be
going
up
to
Give him a couple minutes.
And I have the laptop here.
You're slipping.
I'll just read while everybody's getting settled. Tony wrote in Solutions for Wilmington Schools an essay called More Work to Be Done. Here's some pieces of that. WEAC has a mandate through 2021 and intends to continue its work through that time. We continue to believe that a fragmented system that separates 11,500 children into 23 different governing units in the city of Wilmington is inherently fair and inequitable. Even more egregious is the statewide inequity in funding for schools with high concentrations of children in poverty, English language, juniors, and basic special education kindergarten through grade 3. Both of these challenges must be addressed, and we remain committed to doing so. And the Commission is wholly committed to reducing the fragmentation and dysfunction caused by 20 different school districts currently serving Wilmington children, which is less than 10% of the students, Delaware student population. So that's the case. 23 different entities in the city. So that's what we're looking to rectify here. So our panelists this evening are Mr. Tony Allen, many hats, but tonight is the co-chair of the Wilmington Commission. Mr. Brian Steffens, who is that how you pronounce it? Steffens. Long, arduous slugging away at our Christina School District Citizen Budget Oversight.
You make it sound so fun.
As many people in finances know, not too many people believe their job's fun, but God bless it if those numbers people actually do enjoy it. We have Kevin Oland of the Exceptional Delaware blog, who has done exceptional reporting, especially on behalf of special needs kids. And it's very thorough. He is the #1 investigator in education in the state of Delaware, and his blog is invaluable. And they will be contributing much tonight. And very, very much appreciate that Paul Lombeck could be here. He's my state rep in my 23rd RD district, and his work on behalf of these issues has been nothing but less than crazy. You should get the award this year too.
I got it this year, very happy.
Yeah, can't give it to you every year, but and I know that this is going to be the case again. That you're here tonight in order to help us see what's in the future and how we can help make this happen next year. So I have given everybody my question sheet, and I'll just read the first piece. He would argue that Delaware's existing student funding system is broken. Paul Lombeck has stated that the equalization funding formula is frozen and that funding should follow need, with a salary cap and student rating funding addressing that. This was in the minutes of the Delaware Education Funding Improvement Commission, to which Paul was not a member, but did kind of make a presentation on weighted funding. So I would like a few words on what the equalization funding formula is and why it's frozen. Yeah, you want to?
Sure. The equalization funding structure is well-intentioned and even well-designed, but it's terribly executed. The concept is that across our state, we've got districts that have different economic abilities for raising school tax dollars for the students in their districts. And so this is intended to have all the districts pay into a pool, and then they be distributed as needed to those with greater needs and the lesser abilities to raise those dollars. For a variety of reasons, and the structure calls for a committee to come together annually and say, what adjustments should we make? And the theory would go that if one district has a big influx of English language learners, for instance, and everything else is equal, then some extra dollars go to that district, right? And so you can sort of figure out the concept. Great concept, good structure. The committee has punted for 7 to 10 years, where they said whatever the distribution was last year, we're just going to keep doing it, and motion to adjourn. And that's what they do, year after year after year. Yes, it is really that bad. Their most common rationale for that is that, well, until we get statewide reassessments, until we have fair property tax values, then we're building this on a very shaky foundation and we're making things worse. So rather than do any further harm, we're just going to do the same amount of harm as we did last year, rather than make it worse.
This is a committee of title, what's the title, and who, are these actually legislatures that make this up, or?
There's 2 legislators, 3 superintendents, and I think some finance people, some from Comptroller General's office, DSEA, Governor's office, OMB, Department of Finance.
Not the people you'd expect to punt.
No, you wouldn't. Now that said, I think if I saw correctly, I think the county's assessment or review that you looked at pointed out that this is not big enough dollars to solve things. So even if they did a good job, the magnitude's not large enough for the magnitude of the problem. But I'm going to say it's an example where we have yet to admit that we've got a serious problem. So that is sort of my theme.
Good. Anybody else want to address the equalization funding and why it's a problem? Paul did a pretty good job. So.
It did a very good job, and pretty much nailed it on the head. In its core, in its inception, it was well-meaning and trying to bring everyone on the same level in terms of being able to fund schools for everybody. But when you're talking, the formula is ultimately driven off of property assessments, and you haven't had a property reassessment in some cases over 40 years, even without knowing that the formula has been frozen for 10 years, you could see there's a problem already. The fact that you haven't adjusted your property values to adjust the amount of money going into that formula. It's well-meaning, but it's in execution, as Paul said, is terrible.
Yeah, Eve Buckley is not here tonight. She's a member of the commission, and I happened to see a comment she made about it, which is that the assessments are so old that the Christina district is actually probably sending money to richer districts at this point. Is that through the equalization process?
Yeah, and it's not exclusive to Christina. There are several districts up and down the state who are they're on the wrong end of what the equalization funding formula is intending. I know just from a cursory glance I did last year at some of the districts up and down the state. If you were to unfreeze the formula, change nothing about property values, but if you were to unfreeze the formula and update it, you would see a significant number of districts go into severe financial distress because of the changes in revenue that they would be receiving. It's surprising when you look at it, how bad the problem, underneath that frozen formula, how bad it's become. But yeah, several districts on the wrong end of this formula. And again, it goes back to execution.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go through these and if that's, members of the public, audience, ask questions. I was impressed by the Wilmington Education Strategy think tank, I believe that's it. Dr. Rosa's, edunomics study and her findings. And, I know that these findings have been given to the Education Funding Improvement Commission, and it didn't seem to sway them. Kevin had reported that in the findings of, it was a, Senate Joint Resolution 4, created a committee. Kevin had reported that they failed to reach a consensus, and so with this very compelling data and this laying out of the needs and how to even resolve the needs, that the governor's, I think that was under Executive Order 52. Well, no, that was a previous one. There's been so many. It's every couple of years that studies are pretty much, they're just carrying through these same data. But her key findings are that Delaware's current funding is a staffing allocations-based formula, not a student-based formula, and that the statewide salary schedule does not address barriers to attracting or retaining quality staff to high-needs environments. She does recommend the adoption of the student-weighted funding approach, as well as improved transparency of state, district, and school-level expenditures and resources, which is kind of what I guess the last question addressed, is we all have to realize how deep we have to dig down and get to the root structural problems that we're just been ignoring. So I guess WEAC is sort of the next step, but what are our next steps? Anybody want to take that one?
Well, and you're right about the economic study. I thought was thoughtful. I would say that WEAC's proposal was something less than that. So our thought was just to amend the current formula to reflect additional needs for students, English language learners, and special education K-3, which had a price tag to it, but we hadn't thought about how that would be implemented in Newcastle County first, I think, and then scaled over time across the state. And that don't mean over time 20 years, but over time like 5 years. And even getting that on the table was difficult. And a lot of it had to do with what they called the price tag. And I think a better, not a clear understanding of how many people believe that if we did this, some richer school districts, to be quite honest, would lose. Which has been sort of the undercurrent. I've been probably been 100 now. The undercurrent has been twofold. One, we're not sure we want those kids in our schools. And two, if you change the funding formula, that might mean that our schools lose, and kids that might quote unquote need this the most would get more money, but it wouldn't be effective. It might be inherently flawed, and what economics and West is trying to do is say, let's really get to the root cause of the problem, go deeper. And we're in a situation now where our leadership wanted to do the first step, but being able to do the bigger stuff is big overlapping. And it says something about us, right? So if those folks who are on the, using this loosely, the weighted funding formula side, right? We haven't aligned as to what our first step should be either, which I think is prohibiting our ability to move forward.
I think part of the problem is you have so many federal mandates come down to the state level. Feds will pay for it for a while, and the state does, and then eventually it might all trickle down to the local level. So you have all these different programs in place for everything, and that's messing it up too. I mean, we're talking about retaining good teachers. We tried the Delaware Talent Cooperative, paying teachers more to go to other districts that have higher needs, and that was based on federal funding. It wasn't the most popular program, but then that funding ran out, so it just disappears. And now I guess we're trying this excellent educators for all program to or something new, so we're just reinventing the wheel every 3-4 years, and it's not working.
All right. Well, I think we're going to have to take that one.
And he said, and his question was, what are we gonna do to get education for public kids in Wilmington to where it needs to be? That was his question. And I said, and it took me some time, I collected my thoughts, and I said, I don't know you, but I'm gonna make some guesses here, okay? I see bookcases, and I see both parents with you. You look kind of intelligent. You're what I call a low-needs student. And I mean that as a compliment. Now, your parents are your number one advocate. Okay, I'm not your number one advocate. I care about it. Representative Kowalko shares this often. Says, I serve the entire state and the entire state's welfare, and I want to make sure that we do things in a way that's best for all students. That's not your parents' priority. Now, I have to know your parents and like your parents. I think they actually share some of my things, but a solution means I need to put fewer dollars towards low-need students like you, and more dollars towards higher-need students, including some of those in Wilmington. And that's really tough because parents like your own may say, heck no, I like the concept, but really, and that's the extreme challenge that we face as elected officials. And I don't know the solution.
Well, the other thing I'd say is, I agree with you on that. But that's the equity question that Brown was founded on, right? That it wasn't a matter of equality. It was an equity point, which doesn't always mean equal dollars for the same kid. And what I worry about, and I've talked to a lot of folks about this, is if we don't figure it out and fix it, and by we I mean our elected representatives, we are edging ever closer to a real, and I think substantive, legal battle. And I think they'll overrule it. I really believe that. If you look at what Jersey's doing right now, some of the Connecticut lawsuits, federal courts are looking at this from an equity standpoint, and they're rooting their decisions in, I think 60 years of transformational analysis, and if there's anything we've done at the commission, I think we've provided about 1,000 pages of additional evidence. So any legislator I could talk to, I just behoove them to take that lawsuit seriously, because that'll hurt. One, it will hurt Delaware, in my opinion, from an economic standpoint, and two, the federal courts never did it right. You know what I'm saying? And I don't
leave it up to them.
I don't mean that as an aspersion, right? But they're not going to get it exactly right. So if we don't step in and kind of figure it out, then it will be put upon us in a way that can really get everybody.
It's not unrelated to repealing the death penalty. There are legislators who say, I may believe in it and repealing it, but I'm going to get kicked out of office, so I'm going to vote against it, or I'm going to vote for the repeal. But I don't want to force do it, because then we're forced to, so I've got covered, okay? And I think there's legislators who are worried about most school funding changes are going to have losers. I mean, yes, if you can invent an awful lot of money, you can make everyone either neutral or a winner. Not real. It's not the real world. There's going to be losers. That's difficult for an elected official to do, except if the court mandates. Court mandates, then I'm sorry you're a loser, but the court made us do it. We're off the hook, we get reelected. Highly cynical, sorry, it's a topic that I think invites that.
My big concern is you have this federal law coming up, every student succeeds at. There's going to be a ton of money flowing, and my fear is a lot of it is going to go towards outside organizations coming into our schools, where it should be going to the schools. I'm not saying our schools don't need a lot of extra supports, but I think there's a big emphasis on getting money to, more United Way or Easter Seals or whatnot, coming into the schools, doing after-school supports, and I think we need to fix what's wrong in the schools first before we start doling out money to other organizations.
Well, I guess that points to, with the Senator McDowell actually flipped from about a day and a half, one article in the newspaper. One day he says, there's not going to be any money for Grant and Aid, and he really seemed to mean it, and then he flipped, of course, and said, we're actually going to give you more money than we thought than you wanted. So I do worry sometimes about these nonprofits that have been juggling needs, services to provide to the state that the state can probably easier afford through a nonprofit. So the needs in these impoverished or special needs or English language learners, that there's a lot of extra services that are necessary. But I'm not sure exactly what you mean about the monies coming through. It's basically the new No Child Left Behind, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's tons of federal grants that are gonna open up through that. And once again, you're gonna have a problem where you'll have that for 3-4 years, and the pets are good, that program's over, but the state becomes so dependent on that, and the state has to pay for it. And then local picks up a little bit of it, and then a little bit more, and then it just, yeah,
But mandates the program still has to go on.
exactly.
And you have no choice but to pay for it.
You're just building level after level of these unfunded mandates, and it's just pressure about the schools.
Somebody, maybe you, do a flow chart so we can kind of see where we've been and where this is all going. Bill, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, way back in my history, I used to sit on red clay, and everything pivoted on September 30th. And you got each school got so many teaching units for librarian, counselor, whether you qualified for a vice principal or not at an elementary school, all those type of things, and there was a calculation formula. And then at the district level, they were additional units that were granted based on every 1,000 students. They used to call them academic excellence units.
It's still a total.
And they were delved out to schools based on need or demand, or it was discretionary by the superintendent. There were also federally subsidized Title I units that came in. I'm empathetic to some districts not utilizing those academic excellence units in the best way possible. And I found that what I had heard at the time I was there, they were going to schools that really didn't, just because they went in a tag program, an inner city school wasn't getting an additional unit or 2 or 3 to get the class sizes down. What beyond what I just mentioned is going on, and where's the greatest of abuse of the system we have in place? Is there a way to repair it or band-aid it at this point where we're reducing class sizes in inner city schools with high free and reduced lunch, student head count and all that, so.
Like, I grew up here in a colonial school district.
Right.
And I would say that the current superintendent is making low-income kids a priority, is what I've seen. And the reason why is because lots of the district is low-income. So it's
Right.
your target audience, right? Whereas in a Red Clay, a Brandywine, you still have significant populations of low-income kids. But my sense is there is a significant vocal minority that is more well-to-do, not want to send their kids to private schools for additional expense, and win the battle at the board level for sure. And also, the officials don't want to lose those kids to those other folks because they keep their scores up pretty nicely. So you can. I've said this to Merv directly. I mean, Merv touts how well Red Clay does in the aggregate. But if you disaggregate, as you know,
Right.
you'll see where the real facts lie. So, and the only other thing I'll say, because I'm sure other people want to comment, is you're right. We spend 1.2 or 1.3 billion in total. I think it's 12th in the nation on public education. So while I am advocating that we do that spending differently, you could not spend a net new dollar, change your priorities around what's important, and have those low needs students get less, as Representative Bombeck described. And if Delaware was 20% low-income students in the public school system, then I would say, well, I could see how to be a tough political battle. Delaware is 50% low-income students. So just think about that from an economic health and prosperity future. Now, I tell people this all the time. Probably once a year, I have to go down to Charlotte to a Bank of America's headquarters and defend our stay in Wilmington. Have to. Why? Safety, educational opportunities. And then, if you look at our, we have 7,000 employees here. Lots of those folks literally decide, I'm gonna go 15 miles, live in Pennsylvania, pay some extra taxes, right? But not having to send my kid to private school because the school system's better there. So I just feel like long-term for the economic health of Delaware and how we're supposed to treat all kids, if we don't do something, things will continue to be done to us, which you've already seen. You've already seen the consolidation of businesses going away, et cetera.
I think that you mentioned that the word, how can the system be band-aided? I think it's been band-aided to death. I think that you specifically mentioned academic excellence units. And again, here's another example of something that in its origins was a great idea. More and more you're seeing districts using those academic excellence units just to put a regular ed classroom teacher in a building to keep a class size 1 or 2 students down. Specifically, for example, Christina School District last year, when they had to remove $9.1 million out of their budget, they ended up cashing out all of their academic excellence units and put them into regular ed teachers so they could keep their classrooms somewhat manageable. And even so, we're still talking 35, 37 kids in a second grade classroom. So you're taking something that I think was intentioned as you can use this funding for something above and beyond your regular ed. More and more you're seeing districts use them as, we have to put a teacher in a classroom, otherwise, how can a teacher handle 40 kids in a classroom? So that is a Band-Aid. That originally wasn't a Band-Aid, but it's been transformed into a Band-Aid just to keep things going.
Sure. Carmen,
I think that Bill and I come from, because I was a school board member too, and we were, back in the day. And when we talk about how schools are funded, it's really changed dramatically how schools are funded. That is, there's a lot less of it. And, John's famous quote is, we had such and such amount of money, and then everybody wanted to use money how they wanted to, so Jack said, oh, well, we'll give you block grants, and then you cut that total amount of money. So you're dealing with a lot less than used to be. How many academic excellence units does Christina get now each year, approximately?
There used to be 1 per 1,000.
I'm just wondering.
How many
Off the top of
students?
my head,
18,000?
I know, I
About
can tell
18.
you the relative dollar amount we cashed out last year was about $800,000 worth of academic excellence units.
Because what we used to do with the academic excellent units were, in the day, we did have unit money for gifted talented. It was unit money for gifted talented when my kids were little. When my daughter, who's 33 now, was I think in 2nd grade, that money was taken away from the state. That no longer became unit money. So then we funded the gifted talented program with academic excellence units. And then what happened, Christina went into, their financial dive, like I said, at the school board. And we had to cash them out in order to survive. We had to cash them out. We didn't get to use them for anything. So, and if you talk to anybody around the state that has anything to do with gifted talented, they always said, no, make it a unit thing, because then they have to use it for such. Because then you don't lose it, and then you're not losing those programs. It's the same way with the tech programs. Because when my kids were in school, they took technology in school. This morning, I'm in a daycare in Newark. This morning at 9 o'clock this morning, a woman walks into my daycare and she says, I just wanted to talk to you about the computer program that I do. And I do it before and after school. It just came from Downs. I have 18 little kids, and they come to me before school, and we do a special program because, we can use Downs computers and stuff, and she needed computers, which I didn't have in my daycare, so she couldn't do it with me. But she was literally doing that. Now, that was a program that our kids got when they were kids, when they were little kids in the Christina School District, that Christina obviously can't do anymore. But the other problem with the way it's being done now, because she's going into the schools, is who can pay for that and who can't? And what are we actually doing to the achievement gap when we have parents that are perfectly willing and happy to put out, the $60 or $70 to be in that program through the year, as opposed to the 50% of kids that could never friggin' afford it. So they're not getting it, but those wealthier kids, or the parents that can do it for their children because they know it. That used to be in Christina schools. we've lost money. We've really lost money.
Is there a sense then that, the unit, that this is tied to unit funding, and that's a structure that is helping to create this kind of problem? Would that be addressed if it was switched to a student, what is it called, the student-weighted funding, which, in other words, now the money follows a unit, the idea is for the money to follow the student? And I'm hearing that from Rodell, I'm hearing that come across the board.
We don't want a voucher program.
No, not about it, but
One of the challenges is that the unit count system is implemented in Delaware is a body count system, and as opposed to a dollar. So they say the money follows the student. That's not true. It's the bodies follow the student. And what that means is, whatever it is, 25 or 35 students earns a body. Okay, but what you find is, the example, the graph from Dr. Rosa has the average Stubbs school salary is $47,000, and the average Downs Elementary is $70,000. They're bodies. That's one body. That's one unit. But that's not dollars. Dollars aren't the same. Dollars are quite different in here. But we've got this that bodies follow the students, and what the student-weighted funding gets at, or an adjustment within the unit system that gets it towards dollars instead of bodies, then it makes sure that you've got the dollars. Mainly, the thing is, you take a school like Stubbs or Bancroft, and you say, because of the level of low income and ELL and special needs, special education students, that you need a lot of dollars in there, units of dollars in there, and those dollars are going to get there and stay there. That's not happening. We're getting the right bodies in there, but you end up getting, and that's why you have high turnover, and therefore you've got a lot of teachers with less than 3 years experience in a school that needs an awful lot of experience. And this is not casting the blame on any group. It's saying it has evolved to the point where its bodies follow the students, and that's failing us.
So that graph, does it depict that's all within one school district?
Yeah, it's all Christina schools.
So the salary
I use the
average.
extremes.
Yeah, well, the salary averages are that just
62,000.
disparate, even in the same,
Yep.
because I'm hearing that with Dr. Rosa's, and she said that the surprise was the disparity within the district. And that was, then you've given that example. So when you say that the units follow body, what exactly does that mean?
So right now, if a district has so many students and they get so many units, that means they have so many, they've got the state share for so many jobs and employees. And those employees are paid based on a rate in the Delaware Code, adjusts every year based on experience, credentials, and things like that. But there's nothing in there that says a unit has to have the units, the bodies, the staff bodies in a school have to be anywhere near this median. So one school can have all veteran high credentialed, and one can have all first years, and have a very different cost per body. And that's what happened. That's what is reported in this graph. And if we don't address that, but it's one of many challenges. But that's the difference between units, dollars following the student, and bodies following the student.
Yeah, because when you use the word units, it gets kind of confusing,
Yep.
because what is a unit? A unit is a student, but the way the students are counted is different. Like an autistic student is one teacher per 4 autistic students, for example. So what would happen, you're going to have a really hard time equalizing salaries within a school, within a district. Because senior teachers get more privileges and they want to be closer to home, or if they live in North, that's where they want to be. Eventually, there's a problem. However, if you were going by the need of the student, then what you'd have at Downs would be maybe half as many teachers in that building for the same number of kids than you'd have in Stubbs. Stubbs would get a bunch of teachers. They'd have a 1 in 15 or a 1 in 13 ratio between teacher and student, because you'd be throwing 2 teachers into that class.
Extra pairs,
And
behaviorals, therapists.
And that's what you need, and that's the kind of thing that you need to be doing. At Newark Charter, they could probably have 50 kids in a class, and they'd be fine. Those kids would be fine. They'd learn. They'd absolutely be fine. Those kids, none of them have issues. you know, when you get, I mean, the problem with Down's, of course, is that it is, what, 40% poverty? Down's is pretty high poverty now, and that used to be, you know, the gleaming school in the district.
There are kids
But-
that do our charter that have issues, so that's the,
Yeah.
you can't make that broad of a jump.
Not but, you know, when you're talking about the number, what the number of kids that you get when you went to, you know, Stubbs or Bancroft and, you know, those schools in the city, you'd be throwing a lot more teachers into it because of the need,
So even possibly within the unit count system, these adjustments could be made.
I'm gonna leave that to Tony, because I think that we
'Cause that's
did a lot of soul searching and said, we can make great strides
Well,
by making adjustments within the current system.
Great,
Fair?
probably strong. But we saw it as a series of steps.
Yes.
And if, you know, we weren't willing to invest in what would be, what I think more radical and you know, rudimentary ways to fund it, you could at least do those two things. You know, I think our numbers came to about a $45 million space that we would do across the state and those three populations. And I think that number scared folks. But again, I continue to argue that if you have $1.3 billion at your disposal, and your priorities are making sure that the most needy children, half of whom dominate your target audience, then maybe you would shift your priorities in a way that accounted for those shifts among those three-part populations. We just could never get there. And I think from, just because I'm speaking Progressive Democrats, one of the reasons was because you had sort of WEIC's more incremental plan, and other folks like West, who we have great affection for, having more radical plans, and we didn't align. So when somebody said WEIC student funding, they thought Tony was saying one thing, and other groups were saying another. So which one would you choose? And that, in 2017, we got to be much more aligned around what we want, when we want it, and how we want to implement it.
So part of the next steps then is to get alliance with it, get a consensus within the groups, all pushing to the same end, so that the message is clear.
Very much so. Very much so.
Catherine first.
Hi. My name is Catherine Ciferni. I do not have a child I don't have a child, let alone in a district. I came to Delaware as an AmeriCorps worker and worked in the mentor program at Kirk. And I've done some other AmeriCorps work, and I now work at the University of Delaware, but in ESL for college students. And my question, it's a little bit, it's before you even discuss funding. It's a little bit different for motivation. I'm not a native Delawarean. I'm originally from New York City, and then when I was about 16, we moved to Pennsylvania suburbs. Both educational experiences were very good. Actually, I think New York City education was slightly better than my high affluent suburban education. But my question is something that was very different, and I still haven't adjusted to this. And it goes to and I used to substitute for a while when I was between jobs at Delaware schools, Delaware public schools, mostly Christina. And I would say when we're talking about Newark and economic development, I'm like, you have a high school in the downtown and you never know it. Like, the kids are not a part of the community. And I think youth in Delaware as a whole, before the age of 18, is notably kind of absent from the scene in terms of policy and political planning and community planning. I think it's a very absent kind of afterthought in general. But the issue that I encountered most here is, oh, well, those aren't our kids. You work with those kids, and yeah, it's a school, but they're not ours. And I just didn't understand that. I still don't, because you're a state with less than 1 million people. You sink or you swim, you all do it together. And so I don't understand this, you know, like one of the city council people actively campaigned against the Christina referendum. And I'm like, you know, you want to bring seniors to Delaware who want to come for their tax credit you interact with youth and how you market and how you recognize at least that they are all your kids. Like, I feel like there's this definite distinction, like with people, oh no, we send our charters, well those aren't our kids. I'm like, you got less than people, they're all your kids. And I think that's part of the issue. I never felt that anywhere else where I lived. When people supported education, even if they sent their kids to private schools, they understood that they were supporting their future. And here, I feel like that's sort of absent from this component somehow. I don't know why that is, but.
We have more charters, I think the second highest percentage of charters than any other place in the country. We, for many years, were one or two with respect to percentage of schools enrolled in private schools. So whether we liked it or not, I think the feeling was that there were at least 2 or 3 paths relative to education for K-12 students. And I think you couple that with the fact that we've worked on this a little bit, that there's no statewide plan, right? So charter started, the law was in 1995, something like that. We proliferated 40 different charter environments, right? I'm not saying anything wrong with charter, but we don't have any plan around it. And we don't have any plan around how they integrate. And I think the original intent was these places become petri dishes where you can do more within those charters, and more importantly, you can take the best practices and scale up a traditional school system. So, I mean, there's a long history I won't go into as to why I think this was, because I think it goes back to our role in the ground, by the way. But the fact that we have not wrapped our arms around this in any thoughtful way, I think leads a person who comes in from the outside to think we're, not particularly thoughtful about how we want to grow our state together. So I think your assessment is right, that there are reasons it's right. And I think most of that is because we have not said, here's our plan. Even if you take private schools out, here's our plan for